Welcome to the journey of life, where we take young men into understanding these great people's thoughts, where reality is unraveled. What is going on, guys? Today we are going to be diving deep into the life of Aristotle. My name is Brady Strader, but first, we are joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Zayden Everts. How's it going?
Hello, today I am the co-host, and we are going to be talking about someone who tried to explain basically everything there ever was.
Oh, that is what most philosophers do.
Yes,
Indeed.
yes.
All right, first we're going to be diving into the start of his life. He was born in 384 BC in a city called Stagiria, which is in ancient Greece. If you didn't know, it's a pretty old time. You probably did not know what that city was.
Very long time ago.
Yes.
For sure.
Do you know anything about that city? Because I really don't know anything about that city.
I'm not really too sure about anything about it, I'm going to be honest.
Touche, but you know what we're going to learn today, all right?
We're going to learn.
Yes, we are. All right, his father, Nicomachus, he was a great physician, was also the reason he started in bio and medicine, and the reason Aristotle started his thoughts.
Oh, yes, because his dad was a doctor, right?
Yeah, he was. Great physician.
So he grew up around like science and observation and all that kind of stuff, which kind of probably led him down the path of becoming a philosopher. It's probably what led him in the direction of being so interested in such a topic and wanting to explain how everything works, because his dad was kind of already in that field. So
Yes, very true. And when your father is in that field, you like spend most of your life just around the field, and you start to grow an interest in it because you kind of want to be like your dad. Right.
It's like the idea of like having someone to look up to. And if your dad is doing something that is obviously interesting to the large majority of people, you're probably going to find it interesting as well. You're going to want to be just like him, and you're going to want to understand some of the things that he's doing.
But little did he know, he would take it to much farther stance. When he was around like 17, he moved to the city of Athens, where he would go to a school where he was taught by Plato.
Yes, that Plato.
Indeed, the Plato everyone knows all too well. And here, he started to learn about how Plato thought that you got your thoughts from abstract forms and abstract images and stuff like that. But Plato thought, I don't think this is right. I think that people get their thoughts from sensory exploration.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think it's mainly from experiences, but at the same time, I think everyone's kind of destined to be their own person and form their own thoughts. And at some point, people will just kind of split off and believe what they want to believe, as long as they're not too heavily influenced and forced to believe a certain thing.
But around this time, not many people thought that. They kind of thought that the world was centered around Earth and that nothing really, everyone had to be alike. No one could have their own thoughts because that just wasn't known yet.
People had a different view on life back then, for sure.
What are your thoughts about that? Like how people just thought, yeah, my thoughts are the only thing that is right, and that we all should be the same.
I think it's a very wrong way of thinking, and I think philosophers kind of started like a very good trend where people started questioning things, because obviously being too questioning and not really trusting of anything isn't really a good trait to have, but being curious is definitely an amazing thing to have. It's awesome to want to learn more about pretty much everything. It's a very cool thing to be interested in.
And philosophers around this time, because most of the ones we all know well are from this time period, they all were seen as like crazy people because, I mean, their thoughts are different than mine, so why would I think that they're normal, you know?
Yeah, it's a little crazy that people kind of shunned you for thinking even just slightly differently than what was like believed by the large consensus of people, which is, I mean, I guess that's kind of similar to how today works even, especially when you think of like politics and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's almost like egocentric, but
for sure, yeah.
It shouldn't be, because we're all different people. We all have our own thoughts. Not everything is set in stone about how you should think.
And while we're on this topic, Aristotle actually stayed with Plato for about 20 years, but eventually he kind of began to disagree with what he thought.
Like I said earlier with the abstract forms and how Aristotle believed that things came from more sensory and exploration, kind of similar to what his dad studied in biology.
Aristotle kind of wanted to understand like how stuff worked before assuming that's how it worked. He wanted to like make sure that it really was that way, rather than just like going with the general consensus of, yeah, this is how it is and makes sense. He wanted to understand why it was that way.
Yes. And when like you're studying under such a great philosopher like Plato, you kind of think like, when I'm in this school, I should be like Plato. But Aristotle thought different. He thought, maybe this man isn't the right. Maybe he's not thinking in the way that I'm thinking. That's okay.
Yeah. I think that's a good way of thinking. I don't think it's necessarily good to just automatically disagree, but I mean, obviously he didn't, because he stayed there for a long time and he learned about everything that man had to teach. But eventually he kind of went out on his own way, which shows that he truly had a great mind. And With that great mind, after leaving the academy, he ended up tutoring a young prince. Why don't you talk about that young prince, Brady?
Oh, that young prince. His name was the Alexander the Great. This man is like one of the greatest leaders known to mankind. He led his army to take over most of the world and proceeded to have a very historic life. And Aristotle taught him all he knew in the school called Lyceum that he started.
Wow, that is interesting. That was where he really went off on his own foot and was writing about logic, biology, ethics, and basically everything there ever was. He just really wanted to explain it all. He wanted to understand literally everything, which is why he's considered one of the greater philosophers there is.
And this is when he started to really believe in his own thoughts, like called the systematic empirical approach, focusing on understanding the natural world through observation instead of just abstract thoughts, like Plato once thought.
Wow, that's interesting.
And when he started to form his own thoughts like this, people thought he was crazy, as I said earlier. This is when he would be exiled from Athens after the death of Alexander the Great.
Wow, that is tragic. And I mean, it just really shows how people are just like not open to new ideas or people finding out new things. They just kind of want to believe a certain thing, and when they find out it might be a different way, they're just so set on not believing it that they'll just kind of push someone aside who actually believes something like that. But nowadays, he's definitely like looked up to. He's seen as great because we now have a better understanding of how the world works, and he's actually referred to as the father of logic very often because of his way of thinking.
Yes. And this is interesting to me that he got exiled after the death of Alexander the Great. Because imagine you're just living your life. I mean, you tutored this young man. He ended up being one of the greatest leaders known to mankind. And then he dies. And then you get blamed for it and exiled from the city that you've lived in for 20 plus years.
All because you had different ideas than other people. It's horrible, really.
Yes. He got similar treatment to what Socrates got as well, which is crazy to me that all these great thinkers and great philosophers got exiled for just believing in something that other people didn't.
I think that kind of goes back to the point I was making earlier where like around that time period, if you thought different than what people like genuinely thought, then they just kind of didn't want to believe you. And it's not that your like way of thinking was necessarily bad or you were going about it in the wrong way. It's just that they didn't want to believe it, so they weren't going to under any circumstances, no matter how good your points were. It's just, I mean, horrible, really.
It's almost like the modern day term of extremists.
Oh, yes, extremists.
Yes, that they believe so far into something that they believe that they can't change their opinion no matter what you say.
No matter what you say. I mean, you could have the best points ever, and just because they want to believe what they want to believe, they'll just, treat you like you're an idiot, pretty much.
And Aristotle's life, how it was great, would come to an end in 322 BC at the age of 62 or 63, which is kind of crazy because that's very old for back then.
It's very old. People didn't live very long back then.
No, not at all. But hey, good for him.
Good for him.
He lived a great life. He left his library and his writings to his successor, Theophratus.
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 What did he do?
He went to his school, and he truly did believe in what Aristotle was thinking, and that's why he left his school and his writings to him. Yes.
Wow, that's pretty awesome, I guess.
Yeah. I bet he might have honestly left it for Alexander the Great if Alexander the Great didn't pass away.
Oh, for sure. It's a sad thing that he did. It's crazy to think about, like, what would have changed if he didn't pass away, because then they wouldn't have exiled him, and he would have been seen like, I mean, if Alexander the Great was kind of with his ideas, it would have definitely made more people believe him, because Alexander the Great was a very influential man. People would want to believe him over someone like Aristotle, who wasn't really like super known at the time necessarily. But it's just kind of crazy to think about how different like life would have been in general.
Yes. He died while believing that death was the most fearful thing.
Wow.
That's actually really sad.
That is really sad.
Thinking that it's the most fearful thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's horrible.
That is horrible.
All right. Aristotle's great life would end up being one of the most known philosophers of all time, which is insane because they exiled him after all his great thoughts. I'd like to thank you, Zayden, for joining the podcast today.
Of course. I had a great time out here learning about all of these philosophers and taking in a lot of information. Truly.
Tune into next episode where we will unravel the life of great philosopher Plato.
And yes, it is that Plato.